that your children are basically ground zero for their destruction maliciously. But there is a gentleman that I love dearly, Biff Zeppe, with us tonight. SHR Media, BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You can hear it on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern Time at SHR Media. He is someone who understands the hour that we're in, but also he understands that there are some things that we have not fully considered in life. And that's why I wanted to talk with him about UFOs tonight. Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm introducing to some, presenting to others, one of the great orators of urban conservative talk, none other than Biff Zeppe. Biff, great having you here tonight.
Thank you very much, Ken. Um,
Um,
I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask a favor of you tonight,
sure.
if for no other reason than basically the number of topics that you were dealing with. I'm not really very happy right now.
Okay.
I would ask your solicitation in terms of perhaps we could deal with UFO aspects on some other show.
Oh, sure.
Would that
Oh,
be
sure.
acceptable to you?
Oh, most
Okay.
certainly. Most certainly. Anything for
The
you.
points that I would like to make tonight are there are two. The one that's most disturbing, I'll get to in a moment because I'd like to, before I forget, address some of the issues that you were just speaking of in terms of the wildfires.
Yes.
You indicated that you had somebody that was telling you that some of these wildfires were set by Antifa and BLM oriented individuals. And you, like me, have probably heard and seen in the media, certainly Facebook, that we've been chided for saying that that's just bullshit.
Yeah.
To which I would reply, because I have sources on the West Coast, and I almost went to work for Medford PD in Oregon a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So I happen to make friends up there. And do you remember, Ken, probably 3, maybe even 4 years ago, I'm going to guess in general, do you remember the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department telling us something similar to the male and female Muslim terrorists
Yes.
that were responsible for killing people in a business were not male and female Muslim terrorists, and we must not jump to that conclusion? Precedent for lying to people has been set by law enforcement. Sometimes it's because it's in terms of being politically correct, and sometimes it's in terms of we'd really rather not give you all the information yet. I can tell you that whoever your source happens to be, I also have 2 sources that have told me that they have discovered, and everyone is doing their level best to make sure that this does not, in fact, get out, that
Thank you.
they have not confirmed whether or not these are BLM individuals or Antifa individuals, but I can tell you that they're not black individuals, they're white individuals, and yes, arson is involved. Now, for those doubting individuals who would say something similar to BZ, you're doing the same thing to everybody here on Ken's show that the Washington Post has done. I would say, okay, you may have me there, but I'm not going to, number one, reveal my sources, and number
Yeah.
two, let's just insert a modicum of common sense here for a moment. Can we? If you look at a map of the various fires, I can tell you for a fact, when there was high, very, very high lightning activity here in California, always spell it with a K, about 4 weeks ago, 3 to 4 weeks ago, there was a lot of activity up in the mountains. Now, the mountains around here can be up Interstate 80 east and west or Highway 50 east and west. Well, the lightning strikes don't follow freeways. They don't follow highways. They can be anywhere and everywhere. They can be close to areas of human habitation, and they can be in the middle of nowhere. I would ask and solicit everyone's consideration in terms of Why is it? I have two factors for those who still have a brain left and are asking reasonable questions. The first reasonable question is, why do the bulk of these fires that are not linked to lightning, because we're not having any lightning that's occurring up and down the state into Washington, down into Oregon, into California, why are the bulk of these fires, with some exceptions, there are some exceptions, predominantly not far from the I-5 corridor? Ashland is directly on the I-5 corridor. Is directly on the I-5 corridor. Talent, same thing. Central Point, same thing. All areas in Oregon. Now, granted, in Ashland, tons of forests up Mount Ashland. For those of you who maybe vacation in southern Oregon around Mount Ashland, really popular, big skiing area, lots of trees. Well, what we know generally about anarchists is they're lazy fuckers. And so these are not the people that are going up, hiking into the mountains and starting fires. The fires, when they're arson, are going to be close to a major freeway or a major interstate or a major highway. Very simple. Now, for those of you in a thinking aspect, also ask yourself this. Why magically have all of these fires respected borders? They've all stopped where, Ken? At the Canadian border.
Right there. It's amazing how God works nature, isn't it?
You also have to ask yourself reasonably. Now, I can tell you tons about the policies of forest management. There is no such thing in California. I can't tell you a lot about that in terms of the state of Oregon and the state of Washington. But clear-thinking individuals also have to ask themselves, I wonder why in 2020 we're having raging forest fires of this nature in Oregon and Washington, when historically that has not been the case. 2019 California, burning like hell. 2018 California, burning, not quite as much. One of the reasons is that 2020 is the perfect storm for everything on every level, and you never let a good crisis go to waste, and anarchists, Antifa, BLM, are such individuals that they're not going to let the ability to shoot the United States of America in the head go to waste. Exactly. These are concurrent perfect storms. So the wildfires that are being set, I can tell you, like I said, when was the last time all these wildfires in Oregon and Washington exploded simultaneously with wildfires in California? To my recollection, never. Yeah. Along the I-5 corridor, never. What has been endemic throughout all three of these states? Moreover, particularly recently in Oregon and Washington, well, that would be Antifa and BLM. Yes. So one of the things we know about these individuals is that they are well-versed in fire. They're well-versed in burning. They're well-versed in Molotov cocktails. We have tons and tons of video for that. Now, in California, I can make excellent arguments as to why California is burning and California will continue to burn. That's something that I can go, well, all the EIRs, it takes 2 to 3 years for an EIR. If you want to log fresh deadwood and make any money off of it, it takes 2 to 3 years to get an EIR report through. In those subsequent and intervening 2 to 3 years, the deadwood that is falled is no longer that very valuable to loggers, but it still is to individuals and citizens who want to go up and log. That's all one point. So for your individuals who are saying, I wonder if a clear-thinking individual would actually question whether or not arson is involved.
BZ, thank you so much, because I have one definite that I've spoken with and 3 others who have come supplementally and
Well,
written
okay. Ask
conversation
yourself
to that.
if you're a police organization now and you're a fire organization now, what are you afraid of?
Lack of resources.
Okay, and BLM, Antifa, and GALPS organizing against you.
No.
So what kind of yes? So what kind of information are these people in these organizations not going to put out? Because the other thing is, especially when you get up into certain areas of Washington and certain areas of Oregon that are not in Portland, that are not in Seattle, you may or may not know it, folks. A lot of Washington and a lot of Oregon is fairly rural. And these people are generally kind of strict constructionists. And if you give them the ability to do something to defend their area, and they know that there are certain individuals up there that are attempting to burn their property, do you think that they're going to wait for the fire department or some other police department or smaller sheriff's department in these areas? Because I can tell you, except for maybe Medford, maybe Salem, Portland, Seattle, except for the major cities, sheriff's departments and police departments in these rural areas consist of 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 officers or deputies at most. They're really, really small, and they're really, really strained right now. So if you begin to confirm that it's Antifa, BLM, or some version of a strange red and blue haired Gaup gallivanting around with a Molotov cocktail, some of these people are going to get their asses smoked.
Yes.
And trust me when I tell you that fire organizations, law enforcement organizations don't want to be responsible for that kind of information going out. Now, what may occur, I'm going to suggest, and I suspect it's going to be months from now, is that there will be a little blurb, maybe an inch in copy of some publication somewhere saying that investigations conducted subsequent to fire X, Y, and Z have determined to be arson. But they'll be yesterday's news, and they won't publish who these individuals are. And the people in pink and blue and purple hair that you've seen responsible for rioting, you're not going to see these people in the newspapers. They're waiting, just like San Bernardino, just like we've seen in many other, unfortunately, law enforcement or fire organizations, to do their job to make things easier. Again, to make things easier.
Exactly. BZ,
They don't want to talk about this stuff.
BZ, I got to
They
ask you.
don't want to talk about this stuff.
The president was in California. He made note of the fact that these fires have nothing to do with climate change. He set off a blistering attack against him, first from the governor and then Joe Biden. I wanted to get your response to this because I think this is just a shallow-minded urban citizen sitting at home watching a little baseball. Well, actually, I don't even watch sports anymore, to be honest with you. Just sitting here watching TV. I'm kind of thinking at this point that Donald Trump is looking for a reason to do the Insurrection Act. Your thoughts?
I have thought about this long and hard. I spoke to two separate individuals last Thursday night on my show. You know Dan Butcher, right?
Yeah. Good old Dan.
Okay. Dan Butcher and myself and Sackhead Sean were talking about something very similar to this. And I was saying that essentially, I think Victor Davis Hanson is with me, and a number of other people is, there is a coup coming. There's a coup being instigated right now. We're discovering that part of it, and people have made no bones about this, James Mattis, of all people, was one of the persons primary in the plot. They were thinking about another 7 days in May. So if you don't think these things exist, well, they do. Does anyone, well, let me back up. Sean and Dan were of the opinion that this is going to peter out very soon, and right around Election Day, we're not going to see much. Election Day the day after, and the weeks and months subsequent, no matter who wins, it's immaterial. Between November 3rd and 4th and January 20th, you're going to see a tempestuous nation like we haven't experienced in, I don't know, 100 years. Now, I was a child of the 60s. I lived through some of this stuff, but it didn't get this violent. Yes, there were cops that were killed. Yes, there were bombings. Yes, the SLA existed. Yeah, we had the Red Army faction. Yeah, we had all sorts of groups like that, the Black Panthers, etc. In California, always spell it with a K. Berkeley, the Bay Area, predominantly, which is not that far from where I am, in Sacramento. So I've seen this stuff before, but it didn't strike a match nationally like it has here. And particularly, the difference between now and then is you still had elements of the military and elements of law enforcement that were arrayed and able and allowed to fight incidents like this, whereas now these elements, military and law enforcement, have primarily been emasculated to the point now where if all of these bills go through, the only way that law enforcement will be able to fight any kind of an insurrection or a riot anywhere for any reason will be by numerical superiority. And what do we know about numerical superiority in any law enforcement agency right now? Look at my hat. What does it say? Defend the police. Defund the Democrats. What is the standard scream now from Antifa, leftists, and anarchists? Defund the police. Yeah. Numerical superiority from now into at least the immediate or extended future on behalf of the police departments will no longer exist. The ability of law enforcement or even the military to defend you, at least in large what I call urban rat cages, will predominantly be gone, and that is purposeful. That has been done by the Democrats. If elected, one of the first things that will occur is, just like Beto O'Rourke says in concert with Joe Biden on his good days 6 months to a year ago, we're coming for your guns. Because then ultimately, like Australia in 1996, it was a gun buyback. Well, have you seen or anyone monitored what's going on in Australia right now? They have no guns. Australia is defenseless. They are arresting people for going past say a 3-mile area. Cities are blockaded. Highways are blockaded. They're making arrests for people saying we should resist on Facebook. There is no First Amendment in Australia. There certainly is no Second Amendment in Australia. And trust me when I tell you, Democrats want what is occurring in Australia right here in the United States for you.
BZ, I want to interject just one quick question here.
Yes, sir.
And you are certainly a more wise judge of police and law enforcement and court action than certainly me. You have the Aubrey case out of Georgia that will be settling up very soon. You have the Breonna Taylor case out of Kentucky that will be settling up very soon. You have the George Floyd case, in which my belief in all three of those is that the police will not serve time for any of those particular things. They may lose jobs where they won't serve time. And the overcharging of the George Floyd case, were these purposely done by Democrat Marxist attorney generals in order to keep the fire ablaze from now until the end of the year?
In a word, yes. Unfortunately, none of these assholes learned anything from Baltimore. Baltimore overcharged, and then, if I'm not mistaken, Ken, you correct me if I'm wrong, didn't all 4 officers who were involved in that
6.
situation in the back of the 6?
All 6.
Weren't they all found not guilty?
Not
Did
guilty.
any of them do time?
Not a single day.
and that is as a result of overcharging. This is nothing but local DAs, those DAs that are involved, the ones that you mentioned, who are pandering to what they believe are their constituents. See, God, okay, I'm going to have to hold off for a second. To immediately answer your question, the 3 officers that were not directly involved with Chauvin in Minneapolis are going to have charges dropped. Unless you have a jury which is stacked beyond stackable. Mm-hmm. And if I were a defense attorney, one of the first things that I do is demand a different venue other than Minneapolis, because nobody is going to get any kind of a chance in Minneapolis. Okay, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know.
No, they not. No,
but
no way.
Chauvin, I believe, it'll either be a hung jury or he'll be found not guilty for 2 predominant major reasons. Now, I'm not saying that we can't see a repeat of O.J. Simpson in terms of jury nullification. That's always possible. Mm-hmm. But if we're going back to the BZ standard clear thinking individual axiom, if the facts are presented to a clear thinking jury, they'll look at the toxicology report from the autopsy and go, what the hell? There's a reason this guy was saying that he couldn't breathe from the microsecond he came in contact with Minneapolis Police Department way before any physical force was used on this guy. The other aspect is, at the time, because this information has been purposely buried, the officer involved, the primary officer involved, was in keeping with Minneapolis Police Department guidelines and general orders. They have since been rewritten, Ken.
Yeah.
So whether that information is available to the defense, I used to be able to take you to the old ones. I think I still have that link. I'm not sure. But my guess would be, as a defense attorney, I could make an excellent case for getting Chauvin off from the regulations that were in effect at the time. You can't do anything more than operate under the orders that are in force during your time of action or inaction, and or the toxicology report that came back. Those are 2 very big, damning situations. Then the other one that was involved, and I don't know the individual that was shot, but I'm guessing that you're referring to the 2 Atlanta Police Department officers that allegedly shot this guy in the back after he had a taser.
Not that one.
No, okay.
This was.
I can address that.
Okay, go ahead.
I can address that. I can't address Breonna Taylor because I'm just really not very versed in that.
Yeah.
But those 2 officers, and particularly the officer that was involved in the physical shooting of that individual, what the district attorney purposely left out of any kind of an argument, I'm sure he's going to do it in open court, is Georgia at the time had a law indicating that the utilization of a taser is considered to be deadly force. You can't have it both ways. The district attorney, about a month prior to this particular incident, held a case against a Georgia law enforcement agency for the utilization of a taser and considered it deadly force against a suspect. Now you're going to consider that a suspect is in possession of deadly force in this instance, and that the district attorney is not going to consider it as deadly force when that was the exact situation charged with the officers beforehand. As a defense attorney, I could make that argument all day long. Plus, there's so many other individual elements that I'm simply not aware of. But that officer or those 2 officers, they will be found not guilty as well, in my estimation. Now, again, not saying anything about jury nullification. It could be 1992 all over again. Woohoo!
Could be.
But if the juries hear the information and they happen to be thinking logically, then I could make excellent cases for all of those officers, either a complete mistrial or being found not guilty. Predominantly because of the overcharging elements.
Bingo. And so the whole idea in Minneapolis went from charging them with manslaughter, which is basically 3rd-degree murder, to first-degree murder by Keith Ellison, the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. This was not done with the intent of finding justice. This was done to keep the fires ablaze in urban America using white miscreants who consider themselves Black Lives Matter to rage the irrationalities of blacks back out onto the streets, back out into causing decay and chaos in communities. That decadence is what they are hoping for from October until the end of the year. And it is to masquerade for the fact that there is systemic racism in America, and there's no such. Am I correct in that regard?
Yeah, and I'd like to cap it with this.
Yes.
I'm an ancient white guy, and I've said before, and I'll say it again on your show, there is no systemic racism in America. There is no systemic racism in law enforcement. It doesn't exist. And if you say that I'm a white guy, I can say that. I don't care. I've been insulted by professionals, and nobody here is one. There isn't one professional that I've met that's insulted me even remotely close to a criminal on the street. Second, having said that, we can't continue on this path that we're on. Between now and January 20th, I honestly, I cannot predict what's going to occur, but I will say that if you think the violence has ended, you couldn't be more wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens after January 20th? Whether we see a Speaker President Pelosi, I really couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But absent the ability of leftists and Democrats to miraculously and surprisingly come to their senses all of a sudden, that's not going to occur. They don't have it within themselves to do that. They have no introspection. They have no self-examination or judgment. That simply doesn't exist in their world.
Let me just say this.
Unless this stops, we're going to see what I call CW2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I concur with you, BZ. I think we've been on the same page for a while, and the rest of our conservative brethren will eventually catch up. But, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching December 1859 to March 1860 happen right in front of your eyes. This is the prelude to Civil War. And they have already made up their minds that Donald Trump is going to win the election no matter what they do. They can't print enough mail-in ballots to make him lose. They know that they lost the presidential. They're hoping not to lose the House. If they lose the House, you are looking at holy hell from November 3rd until January 20th, if not more so. You're going to need the military to be involved. That's just my opinion. One final question for you. Reed Hastings.
You want a little clue?
Oh, yes. Go right ahead.
You want a little clue?
Mm-hmm.
California is looking at the first time ever losing two representatives. So, to go back to buttress your thought, I believe we're going to keep the White House, we're going to keep the Oval Office, we're going to keep the Senate, it's going to be a squeaker, and we're going to take back the House. And we're going to win the popular vote, and we're going to win the Electoral College. That, if nothing else, is enough to spark CW2. Guaranteed.
There you go. One final thing. Reed Hastings, should he serve time for pedophilia?
Reed Hastings, refresh my memory.
Netflix playing Cuties. The movie where the little girls are doing just about any.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I don't know who Reed Hastings is.
He's the CEO.
Is he the director, the
Netflix.
producer?
He's a CEO of Netflix.
maybe you can ask me that on another occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I worked in child abuse for 3.5, almost 4 years for my department. I told some people on my show that I was going to do, I don't know, maybe an hour about something like that. This is well, I'll just sum it up this way. Whatever happens to this guy, I don't know. I can't even begin to predict. I can tell you exactly what's happening right now, every second of the hour, with cuties on Netflix. Pederasts, pedophiles are age rangists. If a child is too young, they're uninterested. If a child is too old, they're uninterested. For every pedophile who falls to the, I don't know, because I think it's no shock that these kids are advertised as being what? Both of these kids or one of these kids is specifically 11 years old?
Yeah,
Okay, so
exactly.
there's a strata of pedophiles that are watching this show again and again and again and again. Let me give you a quote to end this, if I could, from
Yes.
a Washington pedophile. The guy's name was Wesley Allen Dodd, and he was executed by the state of Washington in the 1990s, maybe mid 90s, right around in there. He's responsible for killing probably, I don't know, my guess was at least 20, 25 young boys. And he said in an interview that I happened to see when I was watching live interviews like that,
Yeah.
that if you were to let me out, and this is ever the truth, he said, if you let me out, I'm telling you right now that I will reoffend. And it doesn't matter what you do to me. It doesn't matter what you say to me. It doesn't matter in terms of chemical castration, because if there's one thing you cannot do is castrate my mind.
Mm.
Men, some women, mostly men, live in these worlds of pedophilia, murder, and rape in their minds. These are fantasies. Yes, a great deal of them have to do with control. Much of it is about sexuality and sexual power. But one of the greater reasons that you will never stop these individuals until they're dead is because you can't do anything with the mind. And the fantasies that drive and fuel men that are watching 11-year-olds, and I'm guaranteeing you they are watching it maybe 5 or 6 hours a day. And
Mm-hmm.
in their minds, when they sleep, when they walk, when they go to the post office, when they're driving their car, what they're thinking about is all the various scenes in that Netflix movie that are being replayed in their head hour after hour after hour after hour. And all that is doing is fueling that fire.
Netflix, cuties. Lord, I thank you every night for BZ. What a great friend and a great thinker and a great orator. Uh, you got a show this coming Tuesday and Thursday. Tell us what it's all about.
I've got an individual who's a financial planner who's coming on Thursday, and he's going to tell us what he thinks is in the future for our finances. He's going to tell us what he thinks is coming if Trump wins, what he thinks is coming if Trump loses. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to be talking a lot about coronavirus. You were talking about Facebook. I think I've determined that Facebook is dead to me. I'm going to start going to Periscope. I'm going to use Facebook as it should be used, like a wet Kotex and tossed to the side. I'm
There
going
you
to
go.
use it to promote my show. It will promote my show, but I will no longer be playing any of my shows on Facebook. It's tomorrow night when I'm going to be talking about Wuhan 19 for 2 straight hours. 2 hours of truth. You're not going to hear it on Facebook.
China flu, baby. China flu. Created by the hands of Xi Jinping and mailed directly to Donald Trump. Ladies and
And the
gentlemen,
confirmation of that, by the way, coming out tomorrow, because one of the people on Fox, I can't remember who, is going to have a Chinese scientist tomorrow night sometime spill the beans about, yes, it was grown in a lab in China and it was released.
and you know what? You need to go back to September 15th because that's when they started this process in Wuhan. September 15th, ladies and gentlemen, of last year. Xi Jinping shook hands with the president and knew what was coming. And my opinion is we have been too soft in waiting for a rebuke. We need to do something mightily to China. They deserve all of our firepower. My personal opinion.
Oh, not just the United States, the entire world, the entire
Amen.
planet ought to be
Amen.
aligned and arrayed against one country, China. Every one of them.
There should be a little hole in the middle of China called the Wuhan Sea, right there. Ladies and gentlemen, BZ, you got to watch him tomorrow night. Sir Mark the Bloviating Zeppelin, Biff Zeppe, just a prince and a king of great oration and conservative thought. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that we have gone beyond our hour of power, and I am to tell you just one thing, first and foremost, that you continue to watch us on TECN TV, but as well, that you remember just one thing tonight, if you don't remember anything else, that God bless America. It's time for America to bless God. I want to thank everybody for staying and watching and tuning in. This stuff will be seen on BitChute tomorrow morning or afternoon. And as well, I can't promise you Google YouTube, because like I told you before, Facebook and Google YouTube are in a firefight with Ken McClinton and TECN TV. That's why I tell you that the best thing that conservatives can do is create your own, broadcast your own, and you'll never worry about being thrown off the social media planet. Listen, God bless each and every one of you. Mary Brockman, love you dearly. Thank you so much. God bless you. And as well, Mrs. Biggs, Smooches Gracias, thank you so much for all your support. Miss Kimberly, thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Smooches Gracias. For everybody else, listen, always remember that God bless America. It is now time for America to bless God. Good night. See you tomorrow night.